Good evening. This is the November 29, 2023 meeting of the San Francisco County Transportation Authority Community Advisory Committee, or CAC. I'm Kat Siegel, Vice Chair of the CAC. Our Chair, Kevin Ortiz, should be here shortly. Before I give the Chair's report, I'd like to ask Elijah Saunders, our clerk this evening, to do a roll call to ensure we have quorum, and then he will read an announcement about public comment.
Thank you, Vice Chair Siegel. Member Bars absent. Member Chen
Present.
present. Member Daniels
present.
present. Member Davidson
Present.
present. Member Ford absent. Member Kim
Present.
present. Member Levine
Present.
present. Member Milford Rosales
present.
present. Member
Ortega present.
present. And Member Ortiz, Ortiz absent, and Vice Chair Siegel
Present.
present. Vice Chair, we have quorum. Now for my welcome, Chair Ortiz. For public comment will be available for each item on this agenda via telephone by calling one of the numbers listed on the front of the agenda or joining the meeting through the Zoom link. Once you join, you'll be able to listen to the meeting as a participant. To make comment on an item when the item is called, members of the public participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9. Do not press *9 again, or you'll be removed from the queue. When you are asked to unmute yourself, press *6 or the unmute button to unmute yourself. The live operator will advise that you will be allowed 2 minutes to speak. When your 2 minutes are up, we will move on to the next caller. Best practices are to speak slowly, clearly, and turn down the volume of any televisions or radios around you. Thank you. That concludes my announcement.
Great, thank you, Clerk Saunders. Let's move on to item 2, and I do apologize for my tardiness. CAC members, it's good to see all of you in person again. I'm going to give the chair's report for item 2. First, I encourage CAC members and folks listening in to read the executive director's report presented at yesterday's board meeting. It is available on the agency's website at sfcta.org. It is full of brief, informative updates about a project delivery and other efforts the agency is working on. I'd like to highlight a few, starting with yesterday, Senator Wiener held a Senate Select Committee hearing on Bay Area Public Transit. Transportation Authority testified about modeling an exercise that the agency performed at the request of the Senator's office to forecast the impacts of future transit cuts that may be necessary if additional transit operating funds are not identified to address the transit fiscal cliff we've been hearing about for the past year plus. To provide some context, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission estimated transit operating shortfalls using standardized assumptions for the 3-year period covering fiscal years 2023, 2024 to 25-26. MTC's needs estimate show the Regency's 3-year standardized need at $791 million. Most of that is BART, $352 million, and SFMTA, $309 million, which together handle most of the region's transit trips. If additional transit operation funds are not found, the Transportation Authority's analysis showed that there would be significant decreases in transit ridership on the order of 100,000 fewer daily transit boardings, including increases in transit crowding and loss of mobility and access to jobs, in particular for those in equity priority communities. This hearing and other efforts at the regional level with transit operators, MTC, and congestion management agencies like the SFCTA are ongoing as they seek to identify and implement strategies to attract and retain transit riders and find sustainable funding solutions to support and enhance service. This body will receive an update on this early 2024 as part of the annual legislative program approval. Now to switch to a couple of outreach opportunities. This month, the Transportation Authority launched outreach for the Brotherhood Way Safety and Circulation Plan, including meetings with community-based organizations, an online survey, and an interactive online. On December 6th, the agency is hosting an interactive online town hall, and then on December 16th, they are hosting a walk around the neighborhood. This first outreach will focus on confirming study goals and hearing from community members about transportation needs, barriers, and challenges. Learn more, take the survey, and sign up for events at sfcta.org/brotherhood. The mission-based school access plan requested by Commissioner Dorsey and funded through the Prop K neighborhood program aims to improve active transportation access to a new school in the San Francisco Unified School District is constructing in Mission Bay. Outreach will begin this month as the project team meets with community-based organizations. In January, the The Transportation Authority will release an online survey and host an in-person workshop where community members will be invited to share their experiences walking or biking in Mission Bay and help identify key barriers near the school site, which should be improved. Learn more and stay up to date at sfcta.org/Mission Bay School. And the Transportation Authority CAC held its inaugural skateboard subcommittee meeting on November 14th. And I want to thank members Chen and Daniels for joining me at that meeting. The purpose of the subcommittee is to provide a forum to establish an understanding of existing conditions and discuss issues, needs, and potential strategies for better supporting skateboarding in San Francisco. The subcommittee heard a presentation from Aaron Breedwar, skateboarding advocate and instructor, who detailed benefits and barriers to skateboarding as a form of transportation. The subcommittee focused on the current state of public infrastructure for skating, transportation code that limits where people can skateboard, and heard robust public comment. The subcommittee will reconvene at a date to be determined to hear outside agency presentations and discuss possible next steps. The subcommittee's final findings will be brought to the whole CAC and shared with this board through the CAC chair's report. And moving over to meeting management, CAC members, if you'd like to speak, you can indicate doing so by standing up your name card on its ends, so it's pointing up. I ask CAC members to wait until I call on you to speak, then press the red star at the base of the microphone to turn it on. You should see a red light on below the mouthpiece. Please turn off the microphone when done speaking by pressing the red star again. Be sure to speak directly into the microphone so folks in the back of the room can hear you. Please limit your questions to a max of 2 questions per agenda item. Presenters, please only respond to questions if requested by the chair. CAC members and folks in the hearing room, please turn off or silence all electronic devices and computer notifications during the meeting. That's it for announcements. Are there any questions or comments from CAC members on the chair's report? Great. Is there anyone in the hearing room wishing to give public comment on the chair's report? Operator, is there any remote public comment on the chair's report?
No, there's no public comment.
Cool.
There's no remote public comment.
Perfect. We're gonna move on to the consent agenda really quickly. So item number 3, which is gonna be the nominations for the 2024 Community Advisory Committee Chair and Vice Chair. And this is an action item. So no staff presentation, but Maria and Elijah, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Per the CAC bylaws, nominations for the chairperson and vice chairperson will be made at the last CAC meeting of the calendar year to be eligible for election at the first CAC meeting of the following year. There are no term limits for CAC offices. All members who are nominated and accept the nomination will need to provide myself, Elijah, the clerk of the CAC, with a brief statement of qualifications and objectives by January 17th to include in the meeting packet for our January 24th meeting when the elections will be held. Nominations are now in order for the office of chair. Any member may nominate themselves or another member. The nomination must be accepted prior to the election. The member does not need to be present tonight to be nominated. No seconds are required for nominations. Would anybody like to nominate themselves or another CAC member for chair?
I would like to nominate Vice Chair Siegel for Vice Chair.
For vice chair? For chair?
Yeah, Vice Chair for Vice Chair.
Okay. We're taking nominations for chair.
For chair, oh, sorry.
Right. We're just chair, then we'll move on to the vice chair
Okay,
next.
let's do that then.
Anybody else?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Chair Ortiz for chair.
And Chair Ortiz, do you accept this nomination? I do. Wonderful. Does anybody else have a nomination or like to self-nominate? Going once, going twice. All right. Okay, nominations are now in order for the office of vice chair. Would anyone like to nominate themselves or another CAC member for vice chair?
Let's try this again. I'd like to nominate Vice Chair Siegel for Vice Chair.
Vice Chair Siegel, do you accept this nomination?
Yes, I accept.
Vice Chair Siegel is nominated. Are there any further nominations?
I would like to self-nominate for vice chair.
Okay. Naj Daniels has self-nominated for vice chair. Any other nominations, self-nominations? That looks like it is it. All right. Being that there are no further nominations, the nominations for vice chair are closed. Is there anybody in the room who would like to make public comment on the chair or vice chair nominations? Seeing none, operator, do we have any remote public comment?
No remote public comment for nominations.
Thank you, operator. That concludes this item. Chair Tees.
Sweet, so let's move on to item 4, which is approving the minutes of the October 25th, 2023 meeting. This is an action item. Do CSC members have any questions or comments on item 4 on the minutes? Seeing none, do we have any public comment on this item? In the room? Is he standing up? Okay, got it. All right, do we have any remote public comment?
There's no remote public comment for item 4.
Great. Can we take this same house and fall, or is this the first action item? Got it, okay. So let's take a roll call vote.
Yes, Chair, on item number 4, the minutes, member Bars absent. Member Chen,
Chen, I.
member Daniels,
Daniels, I.
Daniels, member Davidson,
Davidson, I.
Davidson, member Ford absent, member Kim,
Kim, I.
Kim, member Levine,
Levine, I.
Levine, member Milford Gonzalez, Milford Gonzalez, member Ortega,
Ortega, I.
Ortega, member Ortiz,
Ortiz, aye.
Ortiz, and Vice Chair Siegel.
Siegel, I.
Siegel, there are 9 ayes and minutes are approved.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to item 5, which is adopting a motion of support to adopt the 2023 Prop L 5-year prioritization program for community maintenance, rehabilitation, and replacement, and amend the Prop L strategic baseline. This is an action item. Presenting is going to be Camille. Coaching, Coach Wah, assistant planner and person, and I know we have a few other staff members. Thank you for being here.
All right, good evening, CAC members. I'm Camille Koshwa, Assistant Transportation Planner, and today I'll be presenting the 5YPP for the Community Maintenance, Rehabilitation, and Replacement Program. So I'm going to go through these first few slides just very quickly, as you all have seen them before in our prior presentations. But as a reminder, the expenditure plan approved by the voters requires development and board approval of a 5-year prioritization program, or 5YPPs, as a prerequisite to allocation of funds from a given program, along with the adoption of the Prop L strategic plan. And the board has approved 14 5YPPs to date. The strategic plan baseline, which was approved earlier this year, included an initial budget on a pay-go basis. We're now in step 2, working with sponsors to identify the specific projects to fund in the next 5 years. This slide outlines the sections in the 5YPP documents, which are included as an enclosure to this item for you. And as a reminder, the board adopted prioritization criteria for each program that guide the development of our recommendations. Our recommendations are also based on a series of public engagement efforts we conducted to inform the development of the 5YPPs. So next we'll go over the Muni Maintenance 5YPP that is recommended for approval today. This 5YPP includes specific projects with funds programmed in this fiscal year 23-24 and placeholders for projects with funds programmed in the remaining 4 years of the 5YPP period. Community maintenance is the largest program and includes facility modernization, electrification of the fleet, and corresponding facility changes, which you saw in SFMTA's fleet and facility update presentation last month. These are part of a large and complex capital improvement program where SFMTA is coordinating project sequencing for facility modernization and upgrades with the plan to move toward an entirely zero emission fleet. And procurement of that fleet is reliant on available charging infrastructure and storage capacity for new buses. In their presentation, SFMTA also outlined some of the risks, which include, but aren't limited to, PG&E capacity and timing and funding. Given the many uncertainties about how this program will unfold and the need for more time to develop full funding plans for proposed projects or project phases, we are recommending placeholders in the last 4 years at this time. And SFMTA expects to be ready to seek a 5YPP amendment this fall to replace the placeholders with specific projects. What you will see for the program of projects in this current fiscal year is a mixed procurement of hybrids and battery electric vehicles, replacing vehicles at the end of useful lives, and making sure the facilities can accommodate these vehicles. We are also recommending to fund midlife overhauls as part of Prop-L fund exchanges, and we also expect to see more Prop-L funds for overhauls in the later years of the 5YPP. So now I'll go over the specific projects. In last month's update about the status of the fleet and facilities, SFMTA discussed how it relates to the California Air Resources Board Innovative Clean Transit Regulation, which requires all public transit agencies in the state to transition to zero emission buses by 2040. So most of the projects that we're recommending programming for today relate back to this. So first, we have 2 vehicle procurement projects. We love using the sales tax to support the procurement of new vehicles because they have such a positive impact on bus service and reliability. The 40-foot hybrid motor coaches project will replace the 94 hybrid 40-foot vehicles that were procured in 2013 and will have reached the end of their useful lives. The original scope of work was to replace these 94 vehicles with zero emission vehicles, but due to impacts from COVID, facility upgrade progress to support electric buses is delayed, and the SFMTA has to purchase additional hybrid vehicles for this procurement. The estimated cost per vehicle is around 1.15 million, which you'll see in a moment is below the cost of a battery electric bus. This is not unique to SFMTA and is posing real challenges for the region that provides federal formula funds that don't go as far when vehicles are more expensive. Next, we have the battery electric bus procurement. So this will purchase 6 60-foot and 12 40-foot battery electric buses as replacements for 18 40-foot diesel electric hybrid buses that were procured in 2013. And chargers for these vehicles will be installed at the Woods and Islayas Creek facilities and are also supported by Prop-L, which you'll see in a few slides. The vehicles are anticipated to be procured from 2 manufacturers, Gillig and New Flyer. And the SFMTA would like to evaluate Gillig's ability to produce 40-foot battery electric buses, as these were not available during the time of the battery bus pilot program. And the other vehicles in the procurement will be provided by New Flyer, who has demonstrated the best overall performance in the battery bus pilot program. The estimated cost per vehicle, as you can see, is noted higher than the cost of the hybrid buses. Now we have 2 fund exchanges between Prop-L funds and Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or RTIP funds, that will be programmed to the New Flyer Midlife Overhaul Project. These are to better match projects with the requirements of the fund sources, as the RTIP guidelines can be quite restrictive. The New Flyer Midlife Overhaul Project follows manufacturer recommendations to perform midlife overhauls on the New Flyer fleet, which significantly reduces incidents of breakdowns and is required to maintain the vehicles and enable them to meet their useful lives. Back in October, the board recommended programming the RTIP funds to the SFMTA's Midlife Overhaul Project Phase 3, conditioned upon approval of this fund exchange. And this is a dollar-for-dollar fund exchange of RTIP funds going to the midlife overhauls and Prop-L funds going to the portal or downtown extension project, which is the extension of Caltrain from 4th and King Streets to the Salesforce Transit Center at 1st and Mission Streets, with accommodations for future high-speed rail. All right, one more fund exchange. This is the Housing Incentive Pool Grant Program placeholder, which is a placeholder for 18.27 million in Prop-L funds for one or more of SFMTA's projects that are eligible to receive HIP grant program funding. The Metropolitan Transportation Commission, or MTC's HIP program, rewards jurisdictions that have created the most qualifying housing units over a 5-year period, and San Francisco is expected to receive roughly half of these funds. MTC proposed this fund exchange, and the SFMTA will identify a project or projects to receive these funds. The benefits of this fund exchange include earlier availability of the HIP funds, and greater flexibility to use Prop L funds instead of the more restrictive RTIP funds. And the midlife overhauls project would become a top priority for RTIP programming in the region. All right, next we have a series of facility projects, including Potrero Yard and Presidio Yard, which are also seeking concurrent allocation, and you'll see again in the next item. SFMTA presented on this project last month to the CAC and yesterday to our Transportation Authority Board. This request is for $12.5 million to help fund the rest of the design, really pre-development phase for this public-private partnership or P3 project and get it ready for construction. The existing facility services 150, 40, and 60-foot trolley buses, and this project will service 213 40 and 60-foot trolley buses. This also includes the transition to service of battery electric buses. There's also a parallel project to build 513 units of affordable family and workforce housing on top of the trolley facility, and to make use of this P3 development approach to finance construction of the trolley facility. This request will support the milestones consistent with the pre-development agreement, including a $4.35 million milestone payment that is due to the P3 developer in early 2024 after approvals of the final environmental impact report and entitlements. Next, we have the Presidio Yard Modernization Project, which includes a $5.15 million request to fund the planning phase. The existing facility services 132 40-foot trolley buses. And this project will service more than 215 40-foot and 60-foot battery electric buses. Above the transit facility, a paratransit operations facility may be built for SFMTA paratransit operations, which are currently operating in leased spaces. Additionally, parallel development plans are to build a mixed-use development to generate revenues that can be used for transit capital or operation fees. And funds will allow the SFMTA to continue the pre-development planning, engagement, and outreach to move the project through environmental review and prepare a request for proposals for a public-private partnership development partner. All right, almost there. Next, we have the Station Condition Assessment Project, which will complete condition assessment of 9 Union Metro subway stations from Embarcadero to West Portal to address deferred subway station maintenance issues and assess the state of good repair needs. The assessment will be used for the development of specific capital improvement projects, and the assessment is expected to be completed in June of 2027. And then we have the Woods and Islayas Creek Yard Electrification Project, which will consist of the installation of inverted pantograph battery electric bus charging infrastructure and related charging equipment at the 2 SFMTA bus yards. This project will install 12 charging stations at the Woods facility, which already has 12 chargers from the battery electric bus pilot program, and 6 charging stations at the Islayas Creek facility. And these 18 chargers will support the battery electric bus procurement that we discussed earlier. And there are placeholders for muni maintenance projects in the remaining 4 years. And in fall 2024, we anticipate recommending funds for specific projects to replace the placeholders through a comprehensive muni maintenance 5Y PP amendment. Over the coming months, we'll work closely with SFMTA staff as well as MTC staff to determine the amount and timing for Prop L funds to support state of good repair needs and the significant investments in facilities to meet the regulatory requirements around electrification. All right, and a foundational aspect of the sales tax is to use our local funds to leverage other funding sources. The anticipated leveraging for projects in the current fiscal year exceeds expected leveraging for this program. While the projects in this fiscal year have strong leveraging, they're generally being carried by larger facility projects that are exceeding expectations, as these larger projects need to have significant leveraging in order to be delivered. And the station condition assessment, on the other hand, is funded by Prop L only, as this is an early planning effort and harder to leverage and fund with other sources. We will evaluate the anticipated leveraging for the full muni maintenance program, again, when we amend this 5YPP to program the placeholder funds to the specific projects in fiscal years 25 through 28. And approving this 5YPP requires amending the Propel strategic plan to advance funds from future years into the current 5-year period. The strategic plan baseline approved in June 2023 by the board advanced funds for the muni maintenance program beyond the pay-as-you-go amounts in anticipation of the need to advance funds to accommodate the programming requests in this 5YPP, which is why the advancing request today is so modest. The recommended project list would advance 17.847 million in programming into the current 5YPP period, with cash flow extending beyond the first 5 years. This is due to the fund exchange with the portal, which has cash flow in further out years. And this way the SFMTA can program funds earlier while keeping cash flow the same. In fact, this results in a slight delay of cash flow from fiscal year 25. And advancing programming of funds requires a strategic plan amendment to incorporate programming and cash flow for the 5YPP. These changes result in a $1.9 million decrease in finance costs over the 30-year expenditure plan period compared to the baseline as amended. And looking ahead, we're working with various project sponsors to develop the remaining 5YPPs. We will bring the next group to the board in early 2024, followed by adoption of the final strategic plan. And with that, I'm able to answer any questions, and we also have project managers from the SFMTA available. Thank you very much.
Great, let's open it up to questions from members. If you have a question, please stand up your card. Member Levine?
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm particularly interested in the affordable housing units, the 513 units that'll be going up at Potrero. And I'd like to know a little bit more about the relationship between the development of those units and Muni, who owns what, what's going to be the ownership relationship there, is there a cost that's going to be involved to Muni other than working out something with the developer? Thank you.
And we have Jonathan Ruers here from SFMTA.
A question, I'm just gonna talk. Do I need to use this mic?
I mean, there's a microphone right there up the front, but yeah.
You can also sit at the table, Jonathan, if you like.
Thank you.
If the people behind you can't.
Good evening, committee members, Jonathan Brewers, Chief Strategy Officer at the
Turn it off.
SFMTA. There's a light, oh, it's on. Oh,
There you go.
there we go. People tell me I'm loud enough as this, but Jonathan Brewers, Chief Strategy Officer at the SFMTA. Let's start with first, the city charter does not allow the MTA to invest in a joint development in a case where the MTA will generate zero revenue. And since the current proposal for the 513 units at Potrero would be 100% affordable housing as of today, essentially half workforce type housing, and then the remainder kind of multifamily and likely senior housing, we cannot contribute to the project. What we can do is make the 4 acres above essentially the air rights available. So what will occur through our housing agreement, which will likely go to the Board of Supervisors next fall and fall of 2024, is there'll be, likely a 99-year lease of essentially that airspace. Now, what it would mean is technically at the end of the 100 years, the SFMTA Muni would become the owner of the property at that particular time. We still would retain ownership of the entire building. So it's a ground lease.
Would Muni receive any benefits financially though, through a lease arrangement with the developer?
This is an interesting question. So it is our intention with our overall joint development program for all of our sites, including Potrero, Presidio, which will proceed with looking at joint development options, our Fifth and Mission garage and our Moscone garage, to generate revenues for transit service. Like, that is our ultimate objective. At Potrero, and based on city needs and the city's, housing requirements and what was approved in the housing element, on that site, the agency will make 0. So we are providing the space available for housing that is needed within the mission. I think the other thing was we wanted to test, this is a very unique project delivery method we are using to build the project. We definitely seen schedule value in moving this forward. Like, this is a significant project that is on schedule. That doesn't get said very often, it's on schedule. And we've hit significant milestones, like in 2 years, we've got our full entitlement and CEQA ready. So I think we're seeing benefits of the project delivery method as an agency, which saves us money on our infrastructure, the bus yard. But we're also providing a policy need that the city has, and that is housing and affordable housing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you, Member Levine. Vice Chair Siegel.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. First, related to the procurement of the new vehicles. Given that Gillig was not part of the pilot program, I know you mentioned that New Flyer performed well compared with the other manufacturers in the pilot program. How would Gillig be evaluated? Do we know, as a potential manufacturer for this round of vehicles to be procured?
I believe we have an SFMTA project manager online who can speak to this question.
Yeah, good evening. This is Bhavin Khatri, the Zero Emission Program Manager at SFMTA, and I can address this. So the reason why we've always wanted to procure buses from Gillig, and we've been trying to procure buses from them for a long time, but they typically don't do business with large transit agencies, and we made a tremendous amount of progress in last couple of years to get them on. Gillig is also a local business, so they're out of Livermore, and they are one of the major manufacturer that make transit buses. During our pilot program, we evaluated 4 bus manufacturers. 2 of them have actually dropped out. One has filed for bankruptcy, and the other, Nova Bus, actually pulled out of the U.S. market. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have enough competition to sort of procure buses, and we don't want to get stuck with just one manufacturer. For example, our last round of buses that we procured, our entire fleet is New Flyer. And we don't want to get into that situation again. So therefore, we're opening the door for Gillig. And we intend to evaluate them just like we evaluated the other bus manufacturer. We're going to look at the reliability, performance, operability, and their ability to build buses at scale. So we're going to apply the same criteria. Our next big procurement for battery electric buses is not till like 27, 28, when the Kirkland yard opens up. And we think that we'll have enough data at that point to make a decision. But our goal is to not just be stuck with one manufacturer anyway. So we want to keep the doors open for at least 2.
That makes sense. Thank you. So would we also procure like a small pilot group of vehicles, or would we look at how they're performing in other cities?
Yeah, so we're procuring 5 battery electric buses from Gillig, and we are talking to our sister agency that already have Gillig buses, such as AC Transit and VTA, and looking at their performance as well. But we want to make sure that those buses work in our operating environment with the high grades and high passenger loads.
Okay, thank you so much. That's very helpful. Appreciate it. I also was wondering with regard to the Presidio and yard redevelopment. So I noticed that the Potrero yard redevelopment will include a transition plan to battery electric buses, which makes sense to me as an option down the road. I was wondering, will any of the yards after all of the current rehabilitation and redesign have the option to service trolley buses in the future, or are we locking ourselves into just Potrero and the ultimate trolley bus capacity of Potrero as the trolley bus capacity moving forward?
Jonathan Brewers again. So the Potrero Yard is expanding in capacity to be the agency's trolley hub. So the answer is yes. As of today, the assumption is that our entire trolley fleet would be at that location. That said, our director of transit yesterday talked about in-service charging and the tech, Bob and certainly could talk more about the flexibility we're starting to see with trolley technology. And we're aligning projects to the availability of technology for us to purchase. It's part of the reason you're not seeing a completed EP6 tonight, because we're still evaluating the market, the vehicle type, and the timing to keep the fleet reliable. So we have this kind of master plan called the Facilities Framework. It was done in 2017. We are now in the process of updating it consistent with what we're seeing in the market and the electric vehicles that are available. So the answer is today, as the picture looks, yes, it's Potrero. However, are we looking at alternatives as we evaluate what vehicles are available, and will we have the flexibility to add trolley? The answer is yes, we will.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Jonathan, if you could actually maybe just stay up for a moment, appreciate it. I don't want you going back and forth. So I just had a couple quick questions, particularly on Potrero. Can you give us just the affordability levels for the 513 units? What AMI ranges those are going to be ranging from?
Yeah, Kirsten McGarry is on the line. She can help me with the details, but I want to remember from one of my earlier meetings, it was 20,000 to 100 or 20% to 120%. The 120% is for the workforce housing. It's a little bit extended, and the reason we went with that is because we really wanted to consider housing opportunities for muni operators, and their salaries are a little bit above the very low affordable or normal affordable housing. So that's why there's that housing mix.
Great.
Kirsten, if I'm wrong, you can say so.
Good evening. SFCTA, CAC, nice to see you all, and thank you all for volunteering your time. So yes, the affordability level differs between the family affordable, which is between 20% and 80% of area median income, and the workforce housing, as Jonathan explained, is between 80% and 120% of area median income. So we are doing a survey of SFMTA's employees to determine if there's an interest in workforce housing. And then we would have to go to the Board of Supervisors to basically enable us to do that. So we are working on that for both the family housing and the workforce housing. It depends on the financial environment, interest rates, and it's very competitive for the affordable housing funding. So it's a process that there will be, we hope, family housing on Bryant Street on the west side of the project, approximately 100 units. And above the bus facility, there would be family housing, possibly senior housing and workforce housing.
Great, and maybe just to follow up a little bit specifically on just, what's the estimated kind of like unit count for, senior housing, workforce housing, and family housing, broken down by those AMI ranges?
Sure. I don't have those memorized, but it's approximately the 513 units would be on the Bryant Street housing would be approximately 100 units. And the family on the podium would be approximately a couple hundred more. And the workforce housing would also be a couple hundred, adding up to the 513 total.
I think the workforce component was 250. So it's about 100, another 150 to 200 when you get above the yard. And then I believe the workforce was the last 250. So that gets you so about the 513.
Great, and I know you had mentioned specifically that you all are going to be getting permission from the board to be able to survey employees. Are you guys going to be looking at particularly like reaching out to like 250A to particularly for operators and things like that? And are you going to be following a model similar to the teacher housing model for affordable housing?
So that's a great question. So the that is where Kirsten says we would need permission to provide preference for operators or our mechanics or our staff. That is the legal requirement that we would have to go through, which is very similar to the teacher model. Part of that requirement is that we go through the survey to determine that there's interest amongst employees in 250A. And we do have a community working group that meets every month where we have operators who actually work at the Potrero Yard who are part of that. So they've been a part of designing this project and the elements and opportunities that will be in it.
Great, and that is, just to kind of further clarify, is that gonna be solely for like just operators, or is it gonna be also open to other SFTA classified staff?
That's a great question. So that is part of the survey work that we're doing now. So again, it's why we kind of, the workforce housing is a little bit, it's up to 120% AMI. Kirsten, I wanna remember that we did do a survey of how many of our employees would be eligible out of all the employees at the MTA, and I wanna guess it was around 4,000.
Yeah, I think it's like 3,000 to 4,000. It depends on not only their own income, but also the household income. So it would be, and depending on how many people live in the household and that could qualify. So it's a fairly complicated kind of hurdle to get through. But we did go to the unions and the leadership and asked if it was okay to do the survey, and they were enthusiastic about us doing it. And it could be anybody from custodians to operators to clerks to whomever is qualified and would like to live there. They could potentially take the elevator to work rather than commute an hour or two in each direction to get to work at 3 or 4 in the morning.
Great, that's great. Great, no, I mean, that's all very, very exciting. I remember when this project was beginning in the mission for last 5 years ago, it feels like pre-pandemic, so it's great to see kind of where it's now starting to turn out. So thank you for your work. I see another question from Member Ortega.
Hi, thank you. I had a quick question. I wanted to understand what is meant for the $750,000 on the scope of the Muni maintenance facilities project and the station conditioning. Just because I mean, I agree that it needs some work as someone who now goes in the Muni tunnels every day and gets a notification that the elevator is out at Pal Station every day. But I just would like to understand better what it means by the assessment and why it's that particular cost.
Sure, I can take that one. Jonathan Ruiz again. It's like I never left the CAC. So the answer to that is, believe it or not, at the Tuesday SFMTA board meeting, we will be presenting our annual State of Good Repair report, which talks about the condition of all the assets that are managed by the SFMTA. And as it turns out, stations are our second largest asset deferral, like close to $1 billion, if not more, due to their age and all of the systems within the stations themselves. So elevators is one example. Our power systems, the HVAC system that keeps the air moving, all the lighting, communication systems, those are all within the physical shell of the station. The MTA has done an active process in doing regular condition assessments of its assets. And this is the reason. Most things have an age-based score, and our report focuses on the age-based score. What it doesn't focus on is the actual operating component or the operating condition of an asset. So as an example, you have one piece of overhead line. That overhead line should last 30 years, but a piece of overhead line on Market Street that has 20 to 50 trolley coaches from like 10 lines going down it versus a piece on Fulton, even though they both should last 30 years, one that gets used more is going to degrade and be different. So we've done condition assessments on all of our facilities. It's how we ended up with the Potrero and Presidio projects. We recently completed one on our traffic signals across the city, our second most deferred asset at the SFMTA. Stations was the third, so now we're moving through the third component. So the $750,000 budget is based on the general cost for the prior 2 condition assessments. So we know generally what they cost, and us reviewing the different components of the stations, which were very similar to what we looked at each of our facilities. So that was the basis of the cost.
Thanks. That's it.
actually had a follow-up question, Jonathan, I'm sorry.
Just sit there the rest of the meeting.
So I only come once a year, so just the time.
Great, well, hopefully more often, so just actually on the cost, like, you know, because obviously the 750,000 is being used to identify, and assess those those 7 stations, right?
Mhm.
Do we know which areas are, like, kind of a general ballpark range of what it's gonna cost for the total state of repair for some of these stations? And which stations are most in need?
So that's a good question, and stations are a bit of a unique situation, because while a station has a general useful life, so let's say 75 to 100 years, like our facilities, right? In the case of a Potrero Presidio, we're flattening, we're starting over. In the case of a station, we will not be digging up Market Street and blowing it up and putting in big new concrete boxes. So it is a constant repair and renewal campaign. Julie Kirschbaum, our transit director, might have come and talked about the Muni Modernization Program, the Muni Metro Modernization Program, the Subway Renewal Program, where we're starting to do kind of those shutdowns and that level work in the tunnels. The question though is the stations, and you know, they are at an age at this point, you know, 40 to 50 years. There are lots of questions about the electrical systems. We absolutely need to make sure, for safety and other reasons, the fire suppression systems function, the HVAC systems. We also need to look at resiliency. We've had major rain events, and so we got to make sure we don't have flooding in major electrical rooms. That has been a risk in the past. We also want to consider things like lighting and safety. If you look at the BART stations, they've made a lot of changes around lighting. So again, do we have the power capacity? Can we handle it? How's the conduit working? Those are generally the areas of risk that we think that we have that are largely unknowns. Again, our state of good repair report identifies, you know, you replace it, $10,000 in this year, doesn't take into account soft costs, doesn't take into account technology changes, which is why we do the condition assessment.
Great. I guess just to follow up then, what stations are you probably seeing and anticipating are gonna need the most love?
We are doing a lot of investigative work, believe it or not, along the Twin Peaks tunnels, so some of the older stations, like even West Portal. I'm gonna assume probably Civic Center and Van Ness and Church to some extent are gonna have some issues because they haven't gotten as much love as some of the, believe it or not, the Embarcadero station is not the oldest of all of them. So I think any of those converted stations, as we went between Twin Peaks and kind of our solely only Muni owned, where we haven't done joint work with BART, are probably the ones where we're gonna find some interesting issues going on.
Great, thank you. Now you may leave, Jonathan. Thank you. Do we have any other questions from CAC member? Oh, member Levine.
Yeah, just one follow-up question about the joint development. Just curious about, in the end, will the SFMTA have any oversight, or how much oversight will they have over the housing piece? How will the what kind of relationship will there be between Muni, since they're not making any money off of it? Will they at least have control over the development of the housing piece as well?
So we do have control over the development of the housing. So about a little less than a year from now. So where we are is we're going to have the approval of the entitlements and the CEQA likely in February, early 2024. Parallel, we're working on getting the contractor for the design build contract. As literally have different type of project delivery, parallel steps. So that's occurring simultaneously. At the same time, with the developer, we're negotiating the master project agreement. So like we discussed, we're in the pre-development agreement that's been approved. We'll need a project agreement, and that lasts for 30 years between the developer and the SFMTA. There will also be a housing component agreement. This is where the SFMTA has control and terms. One of the things that occurred, just to be clear, that has originally, when we moved this project forward, we thought everything was going to be done at once. And that was a mistake, because this is something we've learned. Infrastructure finance and housing finance is different. And housing finance lags. Where infrastructure, like Prop A, we can advance, or Prop L, we can advance funds now to do construction as we need it. Housing finance is a stack that comes through numerous multi-year requests. So what we've done is as part of this agreement, we were only going to give 1 year of time between the completion of the bus yard and the housing being done. That is infeasible. so we will be giving more time. And that's a control that we have because we don't want the housing or the construction impacting our operations or ability to provide transit service.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Jonathan? Great, I think we're good. Can we open it up to public comment?
You're welcome to sit if you'd like it.
Edward Mason, it's just a little technical thing. I'm just wondering about regarding the battery electric buses. We mentioned that there were 4 contractors or 4 companies that were competing for it. One of them is going belly up and Nova's out. What I'm trying to figure out is who the other 2 are. And it was mentioned that it was New Flyer and Gillick from Livermore. Are they going to be the choice ones? Who were the 4 that weren't here? Was it BYD? From that's manufactured in Los Angeles, but headquartered in China? Yeah, I'm a little unclear as to the direction that we're going with that. Also, there's a photo in here of maintenance not being affected any. Well, as I look at this, the gentleman has gray hair. And this is going to be in the future. My question is, do we have adequate training in place to replace the maintenance staff? Because Muni's got a program with City College. And my question is, I've never seen anything as a result of that to indicate any success, the City College program, to get people trained up and then qualified to then work for Muni in the future. So that, in all these presentations, it never mentions anything about the City College effort that was done way before COVID, along with the other transit agencies, whether it was VTA, they, got together with Mission College to do the same thing because they all realized that they don't have enough trained people to do it. And demographically, we've got a declining birth rate that started 20 years ago in the United States. And so we're short of drivers. Well, that problem just didn't happen. It happened 20 years ago, really. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Do we have any other public comment in person? Seeing none, can we move to remote public comment?
Checking for remote public comment, and there is no comment for this item.
Great, so this is an action item, so do we have a motion to support this item?
Member Siegel, I move to support the item.
Levine will second it.
Great. Great, so we have Vice Chair Siegel with a motion, a second by Member Levine. Can we take the same house, same call?
We do need to take a roll call vote.
Oh,
Member Chen has.
Oh, left. Yeah, okay, let's do roll call.
So on item 5, Member Vars.
Bars aye.
Vars aye. Member Chen is absent. Member Daniels.
Daniels, I.
Daniels aye. Member Davidson.
Davidson aye.
Davidson aye. Member Ford absent. Member Kim.
Kim, I.
Kim aye. Member Levine.
Levine, aye.
Levine aye. Member Milford Rosales.
Milford Rosales, aye.
Milford Rosales aye. Member Ortega.
Ortega, aye.
Ortega aye. Chair Ortiz.
Chair Ortiz, aye.
Ortiz aye. And Vice Chair Siegel.
Siegel, aye.
Siegel aye. The motion is approved.
Great, thank you. So let's move on to item 6, which is adopting a motion to support to allocate $23 million in Prop L funds with conditions, appropriating $150K in Prop L funds and allocating $6 million in traffic congestion mitigation tax, TNC tax funds for 8 requests. And this is an action item. So we're going to have presenting Linda Beret, transportation planner for the SFCTA.
Thank you, Chair Ortiz. This presentation includes 8 Prop L and TNC tax requests and allocation of the Prop L Funds for the first two requests is contingent upon approval of the Prop L maintenance by YPP, which the CEC just acted on. And since Camille just discussed them, I'll just touch on those very lightly. The first Prop L request is for the Potrero Yard modernization for 12.5 million to fund the design phase. This is for a 4.4 acre site at 2500 Mariposa Street. And please be aware that the TA already has an appropriation to support enhanced oversight of this critical and complex project. And we've heard a lot of information about this project, so I'm going to move to Presidio Yard. Presidio Yard modernization is for 5.1 million to fund the planning phase, and this is a 5.4 acre site that was last upgraded in 1950. All the facility plans include a commitment to preserve the historic 1912 meeting structures features as part of the mixed-use development. The estimated total cost of construction phase is 395 million. Funding is about 5.9% of the total cost. The budget includes funds for a city agency memorandum of understanding to create a multi-departmental team to advance the project. And in recognition of the scale and impact of this project, as well as the joint development project delivery method, which MTA has not used before, the TA will continue to perform an enhanced level of oversight on this project. And this is the first of 3 Caltrain allocation requests tonight. The requests included in this item are seeking a combined total of 4.5 million in Prop L funds out of the planned 5 million San Francisco member contribution to Caltrain's fiscal year 24 capital budget for state of good repair projects. So we expect Caltrain to submit a future Prop L allocation request for 462,000 to complete San Francisco's 5 million contribution. San Mateo and Santa Clara counties are making a similar contribution. And the 1.2 million here is to replace the old visual messaging signs with new ones at Caltrain stations, including 4th and King and 22nd stations. Installing these new signs will not only improve the passenger experience with more readable train arrival and safety information, as the current signs are no longer supported by the manufacturer, and it will also improve their maintainability. So the next request for Caltrain is 2.1 million for the maintenance of way track equipment state of good repair program. This project will support the purchase of critical track maintenance of way equipment that is used to keep the track in a state of good repair. This may also include the purchase of the high rail trucks, as you see here, and mowers and other on-track equipment. Procurement is set to start this year with anticipated delivery of equipment in early 2026. And the last Caltrain request tonight is for 1.2 million for their station state of good repair program. This project will make various upgrades and repairs to the Caltrain stations, which may include the 4th and King and also the 22nd Street stations. The maintenance of stations improves the customer and employee safety of the system and makes Caltrain a more attractive option for travel. The station's state of good repair work relates to planned maintenance, replacement, and rehab activities as listed on this slide. And this request here is from SFMTA for the bicycle safety education and outreach for 200,000. And these funds will be used to provide bike safety classes and outreach throughout San Francisco in multiple languages. MTA expects to offer at least 80 bike classes, 18 scooter classes, and reach 1,800 with the goal of supporting the increased use and safe use of bike facilities in the city. And the number of classes will depend on the final contract terms decided with the contractor. MTA has released a request for proposals and expects to enter a multi-year contract with a contractor to run the classes. And this request here would fund the first year of work under that new contract. And future years would be subject to funding through future Prop L allocations. All right. This request here is also from SFMTA for the Sloat and Skyline intersection improvements for 800,000 to fund the construction phase. This project will improve traffic, pedestrian, bike safety, and right-of-way allocations at the intersection. This will reduce vehicle and transit delays associated with the upcoming closure of Great Highway Extension south of Sloat Boulevard. This intersection is on the City's Vision Zero High Injury Network. The scope of work includes all necessary signal infrastructure. In addition, civil work will modify an existing median to allow for an additional left turn pocket for northbound Skyline Boulevard. And due to higher than expected construction contract and construction support costs, additional funding is needed to construct these new signals at Skyline and Sloat compared to the original budget presented in the Prop Design Grant Agreement
finalized earlier this year for design phase funding. So those higher costs compared to the original cost estimates are due to unforeseen conditions, such as more curb ramps assessed by the Public Works Disability Access Coordinator, more civil work to modify an existing median, additional signals to protect crossing bikes, and additional signals facing 39th Avenue, and striping work to improve bicycle conditions. Okay, and this is the last request, and this is actually for from the SFMTA for TNC funds. And this is for the Vision Zero Quick Build Program implementation for 6 million. And this is to fund the construction phase. So the remaining high injury network miles will be addressed through a combination of Quick Build corridor projects and the Quick Build Toolkit project, which implements core safety improvements at the intersection level. This request is for the staff labor and the Quick Build materials to meet this commitment. And there is an amount for evaluation of 50,000 that's included, and that's intended for any toolkit specific evaluation needs that may come up. And since this program was formalized in 2019, MTA's completed 32 corridor projects and at least 15 more in the planning and design phase. Altogether, these projects account for over 50 miles of traffic safety improvements throughout SF. And one of these upcoming corridor projects is on Breda Callaway and Judson Avenue to enhance pet safety, add a protected bikeway, install transit stop changes, and implement curb management near schools. So in addition to prioritizing implementation of Vision Zero projects with the field operations schedule, MT is collaborating to explore ways to supplement the paint and sign shops with contractors or additional staff to ensure that they can deliver all Vision Zero work on the high injury network, in addition to other agency projects, operations, and maintenance. So the Quick Build Breda Kahlo will conduct outreach for the construction or proposed corridor level improvements, and the Quick Build Toolkit will implement proven safety measures at the intersection level and inform the public of the project and its progress through blog posts, social media, quarterly updates to the website, map tracker, and requested quarterly meetings. So with that, I'm able to answer questions, and we also have project managers from MTA and Caltrain available. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I see a couple of hands that are coming up. Member Milford Rosales, welcome.
Hello, is there a resource that can be used to look at the scoping of previous quick build projects? I'm asking this because I know there are many upcoming ones in District 6, Ryan, and other areas that I guess the ones they join to have very varying scopes. And I'm just trying to figure out how to tell which type of quick build indicates what actual level of separation to bike.
Thanks for that question. I'm going to invite MT to answer. I believe we have Win on the line.
Yes, hello, good evening. My name is Win Ngo. I'm the Vision Zero Program Manager at the SFMTA. I can start answering the workflow scoping question. Good evening, everyone. As quick builds, our projects are decided, and then the project teams are formed. They go out and assess, the corridor project and do outreach and working with different community partners and internal, external folks. Sorry, brain fart. They work on a scope and proposed design, and so I think that is why from quick build to quick build, the different projects have different scopes addressing the different needs in per corridor and per project. Please let me know if that did not answer your question.
So thank you. As a follow-up, so on 3rd Street as an example, I noticed 2 of the upcoming stretches are functionally going from Townsend to Mission Bay. One is Townsend to King, and the other one's King to Berry or so, I think. There's a completed quick build that extends from Townsend all the way to Market, but some sections of that have bike lane and some sections don't. So I'm curious how, I guess, if there are plans to fix those to come back later and address those gaps, or if there's, I guess if they were planned with gaps in the first place, or what happened there.
Thank you for that follow-up question. Because I'm not on the project teams for those specific quick builds, I'll have to follow up for those answers. Yeah. Let me follow up with the specific teams so I can get back to you.
Thank you very much.
Great. Let's move on to Vice Chair Siegel. Oh, sorry, Member Daniels, I didn't see her. There you go.
Good evening. Thank you for your presentation. I just had a question around, you mentioned a need to contract out the work, and I just wonder if you could be a little bit more specific around what work is being contracted out. And if the work that is being contracted out is by representing unions, have you done any work with the unions around contracting out that work?
Thanks for that question. I'm going to invite Wendy to help answer that question, please.
Yes, hello. Wingo, SFMTA.
This float and intersections improvement project, the traffic signals.
Actually, this was when you were talking about the Vision Zero work. I think
Okay.
it was around the painting and stuff.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I think when Linda was presenting about our quick build toolkit and how we were going to implement it, our street shops do most of the installation and implementation, but they do it for the entire SFCTA agency, which includes regular maintenance and transit projects, and as well as these Vision Zero projects. So there's a conversation going with our shops and also the union to explore ways in which we might contract out work so that we can meet the Vision Zero commitments. But that conversation is still ongoing. And we're also exploring ways we might be able to hire more staff to provide more resources for the shops.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Member Daniels. Vice Chair Siegel.
Thank you for the presentation. I was just wondering, for the quick build request, how many do you know how many intersections on the high injury network still need the toolkit treatments? And I'm assuming some intersections have some of the elements already, and so like different intersections will cost different amounts, but like for an intersection that needs all of the treatments, for example, is there an estimated cost of doing all of that? I'm just trying to figure out how, like, could this scale to other areas of the city? You know, how much would it cost how much generally does it cost to apply these treatments?
Yes, so Wingo, SFMTA Vision Zero Program Manager. The $6 million funding request in front of you right now, 5.4 million of that is for the Quick Build Toolkit. And that is based on some pre-planning work that we had a consultant, Fair and Pierce, do to go out and assess the remaining 50 miles of our high injury network, which is roughly the 13% of streets where 75% of our severe and fatal injuries occur. So that's like a remaining 50 miles that need to have some sort of safety improvement, and or that is also equivalent to about 900 intersections, give or take. And you're correct that some of these intersections might have some of those core treatments and some might be still missing and need them. So based on that report, in the packet, the CAC packet, on page, I'll have to double check which page it is, but page 208 is kind of a breakdown of our estimated range of intersections that we expect, like say of the 900, we expect between 230 and 280 to need continental crossings, potentially, or this range for daylighting. And so including labor and materials, we expect that to amount to roughly $5.4 million of this request. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Great, Member Levine.
There you go. Thank you. I was just wondering, is regarding the bicycle safety education and outreach piece, I was just wondering, is there any possibility for implementing some sort of public information campaign? I'm concerned with bikes and scooters and e-bikes and skateboard, electric motor-driven skateboards, all potential using the bike lanes. It just seems like there's a great need for some public safety information for users and some sort of overall citywide, I don't know whether it be billboards or whatever, just some sort of public safety campaign over and above the specific classes that might be held might be very, very useful.
Thanks for that question. I'm going to invite MT to answer that. I believe we have the PM on the line.
Hi everyone, Tracy Lynn, Travel Choices Manager. I think my webcam might be a little laggy, so apologies for that. So the intent of our classes is really to help improve a little bit of that. They are really geared towards providing a resource for folks to be able to learn how to ride bicycles and this next program cycle scooters as well safely. So that will address some of the problems that you just mentioned. And then we also have an outreach component where we're asking our contractor to attend, existing community meetings such as Sunday Streets that people are already going to really get some audience engagement and awareness about these classes, which are free, and be able to, garner some interest. And if people sign up, then they're able to take these classes and learn a few more skills that will really help them to navigate bicycling in the city.
Well, it just seems that that's going to be a very, very limited approach, and it just seems like a much broader citywide education process would be helpful, because most of the people are not going to be taking classes, and you're going to have a lot of novices using the bike lanes. And anyway, it just seems like it would be good to be able to reach so many of the people that wouldn't be taking the classes.
Great, thank you, Member Levine. I had a couple comments. So just first on the first, when it comes to the toolkit for Vision Zero, I think like just moving forward, it'd be great to get kind of a visual map to see kind of where the daylighting is, particularly for these intersections. I'd like to see, particularly neighborhoods, just kind of like the macro level of seeing where where a lot of the improvements are being put into place. I think on the second point, particularly on the bike safety outreach, remind me again, is that contracted out, particularly with the SFI coalition, usually for that contractor? And while we know that we can, my understanding is that we can write specific funding sources, particularly for one organization or another. But I think historically, if I'm not mistaken, that has been by coalition that's applied for these grant funds. Is that correct?
Tracy, would you like to address that question?
Sure, I can answer first. So our current incumbent contractor is SF by Coalition, but with the new RFP, it's open to anybody. So it's not guaranteed that it will be a specific contractor next time around.
Great, thank you, Tracy. And just, I guess, a follow-up question on that. My suggestion would be, particularly for the RFP, is maybe even breaking down some of this funding into separate buckets, particularly for place-based organizations that may or may not necessarily have done this work previously, but that might have the formal backing and training for youth development programs and things like that. Because to Jerry's point, doing a broad outreach campaign, I think, is key, right? But I think also working with community-based organizations that have the relationships and the know-how that might not necessarily do bike education as their formal component, but could easily adapt. So that way they're reaching those vulnerable constituencies, particularly for thinking Latino youth, API youth, African-American youth, particularly in the neighborhoods. So that way, the education is happening in those communities.
Yes, thank you for the feedback. I will circle back with our contracting team because the RFP is released. I'm not sure how much leeway I have with updating the contract at this point, but I'll double check.
Great, thank you, Tracy. Good to see you again. So that being said, Member Kim and then Member Davidson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have kind similar question. This bicycle safety education is, as I know, this for other, but also, is there any plan you can expand this program to the the younger, for the years, like, middle high schooler or elementary, student.
Yes, so we do have a specific youth component. Our classes are broken out into adult and youth. So we do have a specific focus on that audience.
So you have already separate a program, and then so this specific is only for the other, but you have the program for yes, right?
This program includes both adult and youth bicycle and scooter classes.
Oh, okay, and then I want to emphasize Member Rabin's suggestion. I experienced some of the scooters, they really speed fast, even they riding on the sidewalk, and then sometimes happen to be blocked them, and then some of them really yelling and screaming, and then it's really offensive. So yeah, I feel like those people need some city-wise education, and it's they know where to go and then how to behave. Yeah, so I think this is really important for especially pedestrian on the sidewalk.
Thank you for your feedback.
This is a comment. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you, Member Kim. Member Davidson?
This is also about the bicycle education, bicycle and scooter education. And probably more of a comment than anything, but part of I think the biggest danger and the whole reason we need to have bicycle and scooter education is because it feels scary to ride on the street. And it feels scary to ride on the street because drivers are texting on their phone or looking at a big screen and not paying attention to where they're going. So it's all well and good that we have bicycle and scooter education, but where is the driver education? We have people have like a driver's license test and that's it. So I know that the SFMTA, their jurisdiction is on, the right of way of the street and transportation. But is there a way to still use these educational opportunities to also, I'm sure, like at least 50% of the cyclists that attend these education seminars also have a driver's license. And so is there a way to also then educate them on how to drive with a pedestrian and a cyclist in mind? Because I feel like as a cyclist, I'm told to, wear a helmet and have a bicycle light. But at the end of the day, like I am the more vulnerable user when a 2,000-pound vehicle is tailgating me or texting on their phone when driving. So I want to address that, and I don't want to put all the responsibility on the pedestrian and the cyclist. And I feel like the educational component, we forget that the real issue is people driving.
Thank you, Member Davidson. Member Ortega?
Hi, yeah, I actually would love to second that and mostly just kind of expand on a broader topic of especially cars and their interaction with bike lanes, I think is one of the biggest problems that I see in the city as a driver and as a bicyclist or someone who's borrowing a scooter because I can't take the bus because it takes an hour by bus or 15 minutes by scooter, which is a different complaint that I have, as you all know. I think that one of the things that I've noticed in the city that I would love to continue for this team to look at and develop in relation with Member Davidson's comment is a lot of right turn lanes are being sacrificed for bike lanes. We need bike lanes. I'm not trying to argue that point, but a lot of drivers treat bicycle lanes as right turn lanes because there's actually not enough space on the road for a bike lane and turn lanes, and then they're backing up traffic because we're waiting for crossing pedestrians. you know, they're trying not to hit someone, but then the bicyclist can't actually go through and then they have to go into the street. And so one of the things that I would appreciate as both a bicyclist in these classes and as a driver is what education can we do and how can we better think about the street sharing role that has to occur in these situations? Because I get why the car is moving out of the way. As someone that's gotten rear-ended in the city, it's horrifying. You know, I could have hurt myself. One of my passengers could have gotten injured because I was trying to wait and the guy behind me didn't want me to. Right? Like, that is the perspective, and it's like people that try to do the right thing as a driver can get punished by people that don't. And then how can we better improve driver understanding of those bike lanes in general? And if that's a grade separation, that's fine. I'm all for it. That's a lot more expensive, and we're trying to expedite the improvements of the streets, not make it longer. So just something else that I'd also like these plans to start considering.
Thank you, Member Ortega. Can we open it up real quick to public comment? Is that okay, Maria? And then we can, then if you wanted to say something to that. Okay.
Edward Mason, basically it boils down to, in my estimation, we have a lack of a culture of safety in this community, let alone in the United States. It's just lacking everywhere. There was an ad on a muni bus I saw very briefly, and I can't specifically recall it for you, but my recollection was it was trying to pursue this culture of safety. It was a combined bike and an auto on there with some inscription trying to encourage safety and that we're all together in this. So look for that if you see it on the bus. Bicyclists, in my estimation, do not use the dedicated bike street. And I'll give you an example. Jersey Street is a dedicated bike street. Where does everybody ride their bike? On 24th Street, in with the corporate commuter buses, the delivery trucks, Muni, everything else. So people are not, playing by the game. In reading part of this for Continental crosswalks, $528,000 for a crosswalk. My question is, why are we doing this? What data is there that says this is a safety issue or anything? Because you go to 24th and Castro and go look at the damage that's done to that Continental crosswalk by the corporate commuter buses making a right-hand turn going up the hill on Castro over the hill. So, when I see this, I explode. To say $528,000 for a Continental crosswalk, unbelievable. And it's being damaged by the corporate commuter buses. So, and yes, the Bicycle Coalition is going to get the contract for this. And as far as I'm concerned, I never see any data come back as to how successful they were in the prior contracts that were given.
Thank you, Ms. Franson. Do we have any remote public comment?
Checking for remote public comment, and there is no comment on this item.
Great. Seeing none, let's close public comment. Anna?
Thank you, Chair Ortiz. I just wanted to add a couple of pieces of information in your packet. In the one of the attachments to the memo for this item, there is a website link that shows the how you can access the interactive map for the Quick Build program. Right now it has the corridors on there because that's been the primary focus of the scope done to date. And I can follow up with Wynn to confirm that the site-specific intersection improvements will also light up on this map, but the MTA will be reporting to us on a quarterly basis on the treatments per location that have been done. in the prior quarter and the upcoming work as well. So that is one way that the public can track. And then also we will have you doing ongoing reporting to the CAC per the CAC's request on a quarterly basis, with providing some information on the delivery to date. And the other thing I wanted to add is we are also clarifying, and this is in response to Member Kim's comment just now, we're also clarifying what classes are offered or that could potentially be offered for middle and high school students for biking safely to school. There is also the Safe Routes to Schools program, which is the a non-infrastructure, it's a non-engineering oriented. And we are aware of some education for biking safely that is offered to youth through that program. And so we're trying to get our bearings on what is offered through the classes or that could be offered through the bike safety classes, what is offered or could be offered through the Safe Routes to Schools program as well.
Great. So I think, do we have any other questions, comments from members? Seeing none, this is a action item. I think for me, particularly, I'd like to see if we can potentially take out 2 of these items and maybe vote on first, just the majority of the items, excluding the bike safety and the Vision Zero. And then we can take each of those items separately.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve all of the items except for those 2 mentioned, the bike safety classes and the Vision Zero program? We have a motion from Member Ortega. Do we have a second?
Yeah, Kim second.
Kim second. Okay, so on all of the items save the 2, Member Bars.
Bars, aye.
Bars, aye. Member Chen is absent. Member Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Member Davidson.
Davidson, aye.
Davidson, aye. Member Ford, absent. Member Kim.
Kim, I.
Kim, aye. Member Levine.
Levine, aye.
Levine, aye. Member Milford Rosales.
Milford Rosales, aye.
Milford Rosales, aye. Member Ortega.
Ortega, aye.
Ortega, aye. Chair Ortiz.
Ortiz, aye.
Ortiz, aye. Vice Chair Siegel.
Siegel, aye.
Siegel, aye. There are 9 ayes. Those items are approved. Now on, do we have a motion on the bike safety and Vision Zero?
Do you want to separate or?
Yeah, let's separate them.
You want to separate it?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take the bike safety classes first. Do we have a motion on the bike safety classes? To approve that is Vice Chair Siegel motions. Do we have a second? Seconded by Member Bars. On the bike safety classes, Member Bars.
Bars, aye.
Bars, aye. Member Daniels.
Daniels, nay.
Daniels, nay. Member Davidson.
Davidson, nay.
Davidson, nay. Member Ford, absent. Member Kim.
Kim, absent.
We used to abstain.
Abstain, sorry.
Kim abstains. Member Levine.
Levine abstain.
Levine abstain. Member Milford Rosales.
Milford Rosales, aye.
Milford Rosales, aye. Member Ortega.
Ortega, aye.
Ortega, aye. Chair Ortiz.
No.
Ortiz, nay. And Vice Chair Siegel.
Siegel, aye.
Siegel, aye. There are 4 ayes. The motion fails or does not pass. Now moving on to the Vision Zero item. Do we have a motion on that?
Member Siegel.
Moved by Siegel. Do we have a second? Seconded by Member Bars.
I just saw, do you want to let's open this up for discussion real quick? I just saw your.
I just meant the signal second.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, on the Vision Zero items, Member Bars.
Bars, aye.
Bars, aye. Member Daniels.
Daniels, nay.
Daniels, nay. Member Davidson.
Davidson, aye.
Davidson, aye. Member Kim.
Kim, abstain.
Kim abstain. Member Levine.
Levine, aye.
Levine, aye. Member Milford Rosales.
Milford Rosales, aye.
Milford Rosales, aye. Member Ortega.
Ortega, aye.
Ortega, aye. Chair Ortiz.
Abstain.
Chair Ortiz abstain. And Vice Chair Siegel.
Siegel, aye.
Siegel, aye. There are 9 ayes. The motion fails or does not pass. Now moving on to the Vision Zero item. Do we have a motion on that?
Siegel, aye.
COI, we have 6 ayes. The visions or items are approved.
Great, so I think in terms of, can we discuss for a moment with the bike education? Do we know when that RFP is going to be approved for bike education program, SFCTA?
Tracy, are you still with us?
Yes, hi. The RFP is currently open. It is scheduled to close on December 5th.
Great, and do we know when we're gonna have either approval for like a contractor on this, like estimated?
So we need to essentially form an evaluation panel and then they will rate the applications. We may go to oral interviews depending how many contractors we have. So that's estimated to take maybe 2 to 3 months.
Okay, thank you for the timeline on that. I think it would be great, maybe if we could get actually a presentation for SFCTA, maybe at our next meeting, just on just the components of this program, you know, and everything you were just talking about in terms of the informational panel, but I think just really kind of learning about the program, and then maybe we could provide feedback from our CAC members on that. But does that sound good with folks?
That's great. Yeah.
I do just want to note that the current program is scheduled to end April 2024. So depending how the RFP process goes, you know, it could result in a gap in this program that's been running for 15 years. So just wanted to share that information for consideration.
Duly noted and appreciated. I think for us, we want to also be able to inform maybe something that, you know, this is a program that's been going on for 15 years, but maybe there's some areas that can be adapted and improved upon with some feedback. Great. Now let's move on to the congestion management presentation. We're going to be having Chen Ho Cho modeler in person. And I know Joe Castiglione is also remote as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'll be presenting the performance monitoring results for this year's Congestion Management Program, or CMP. As the Congestion Management Agency for San Francisco, the SFCTA updates our Congestion Management Program biannually. We monitor and report on a broad range of multimodal performance measures as a part of the CMP. These are some metrics and indicators that I will walk you through in this presentation. Some key findings. As people return to pre-COVID activity levels, traffic congestion has worsened in San Francisco, though on average, it has not fully returned to pre-COVID levels. Notably, congestion has worsened more significantly on freeways than on surface arterials. And at some locations, congestion is actually worse than pre-COVID levels. Transit ridership is still significantly lower than pre-COVID levels. And for demographics context, population decreased by 8% since 2019, but jobs are basically back at 2019 levels. A significant number of people are working from home, and 30% of offices in SF are vacant. Our metrics show that travel behavior changes induced by COVID have partially persisted beyond the first few years of the pandemic. Muni service has recovered in 2023 to serve more than 95% of San Francisco residents within a 5-minute walk of their home. Vehicle, bike, and pedestrian volumes are in general higher than 2021 on surface arterials, but are still lower than pre-COVID. However, the volume changes since 2021 are different during different times of day, which I'll talk about later. On the safety front, encouragingly, the number of injury collisions has remained stable at its lowest levels in decades, even as traffic volumes have trended back up. However, the number of fatal traffic collisions, which dropped in early COVID, has almost returned to pre-COVID levels, even though traffic volumes are still way down. As people began to return to pre-COVID activity levels, the speeds have decreased, but they're still higher on average than pre-COVID levels. On the left, the solid lines show arterial speeds and the dotted lines are freeway speeds. And on the right, the The solid line is the citywide speeds and the dotted lines are for downtown bus speeds. Note that the increase in transit speeds between 2019 and 2023 is less than the increase in roadway speeds. The auto to transit speed ratio indicates how competitive transit is relative to driving. The ratio has been improving since between 2011 and 2019. It worsened during COVID in 2021 and improved again between 2021 and 23. So it's still not back to 2019 levels. Due to rapid and uncertain changes in traffic conditions after COVID, the TA developed a new tool for short-term monitoring called the COVID era congestion tracker. This tool reports a few of the primary CMP roadway metrics, but it is updated monthly instead of biannual like the CMP for a larger set of roadway segments and at an hourly level as well as for AM and PM peaks, which you can see at the website on top. There's also the long-term congestion tracker shown in the bottom, the link that is, which presents the biannual data for the primary CMP metrics since 91. There is an increase in daily traffic from 2021, but the vehicle counts have not recovered back to pre-COVID levels. We observe similar patterns for bike and pedestrian counts. The trend lines may suggest that the ongoing vehicular traffic decrease observed from 15 to 19 is continuing in 2023. Note the flat line in green, dark green, in the AM peak between 21 and 23. Given the general increase in counts across the vehicle, bikes, and pedestrians between 21 and 23, we may hypothesize that AM peak travel, which is primarily for work and school purposes, may no longer be as strongly peaked as before COVID, possibly in part because fewer people are traveling to work with the rise of remote work. In contrast, people travel for a wider diversity of activities during the PM peak, resulting in a stronger recovery and multimodal volumes in the PM peak. The number of injury collisions dropped significantly in 2020, probably due to the substantial reduction in vehicle and non-motorized volumes due to COVID. This reduction in the number of injury collisions continued to 2022, even as traffic volumes have trended back up with the increase in travel activity. A similar reduction in the number of fatal traffic collisions occurred in 2020. However, the number there have increased to close to pre-COVID levels by 2022. Ridership on Mooney, BART, and Caltrain declined significantly with the spread of COVID. Since then, ridership has in general been gradually increasing every year, but in 2023, ridership is still significantly lower than pre-COVID levels. Note that the numbers are from April and May, and ridership has continued to increase since then. This metric reports the percent of SF's total population and jobs that are within a 5-minute walk of Mooney service. Since the significant cuts in Mooney service in 2020 amidst COVID, Mooney service has been restored in 2023 so that more than 95% of SF residents live within a 5-minute walk of Mooney service, as you can see on the right. However, the share of population within a 5-minute walk of a Mooney route with a 5-minute frequency continued to decline from 21 to 23, as you can see on the arrow on the left. Population Mooney coverage in the AM peak and for jobs for both the AM and PM peak shows similar trends. In 2021, westbound Bay Bridge volumes returned to 2019 levels for the PM peak and to just below 2019 levels for the AM peak. Note though that there has already been a slight decrease in westbound Bay Bridge volumes between 2017 and 2019 pre-COVID. Since 2021, westbound Bay Bridge volumes have been stable at 2021 volumes for both the AM and PM peak. The vehicle volumes at the San Mateo County line, shown on the right, dropped by about 50% during COVID. Since then, the peak period volumes have returned to their 2019 levels by 23. The transportation metrics reported in the CMP has been rapidly changing in the last few years, showing the importance of continued monitoring under the CMP. SFCTA works closely with other agencies in the Bay Area to advance congestion management initiatives, and here's a few projects highlighting SFCTA's work in congestion management. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Joe Castillon, Deputy Director for Data and Modeling, is also available on Zoom and to answer questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I see Member Ortega's recording.
Hi, thank you. So, one of the thoughts that I find interesting is everyone that we've increased so that 93% of the city is within a 5-minute walk to Muni. The question I have though is, what is the frequency of the route in comparison to that walking distance? Because I think one of the criticisms that I have levied against Muni many times is that the route frequency isn't high enough, which is why people continue to take alternate transit or drive. So I would love I didn't see it in any of your slides or in the documents, so this can be a follow-up request. I would love to understand that number in relationship to the route frequency number of like, is it every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes? And if that route is only operating on certain times of the day. Is that something that I can ask for?
Thank you for your question. On the frequency front, this graph actually shows, so the dark blue on the left is 5-minute headway bus routes. And then the light blue in the middle is 10-minute headway bus routes. And then the gray is for any service, like bus routes that have a headway frequency lower than 10 minutes. So what this graph shows between 21 and 23, which is the bottom 2 bars, is that the share of the population that gets any bus service, regardless of frequency, increase, which is the full length of the photo bar, but the dark blue decrease, which is the share of the population that has frequent Muni service.
Thank you, that helps a lot. But when you're saying, is it bus service or does it also include the rail cars?
This only includes bus service.
Okay, could I have that then? One with the rail cars? I'm just very curious because that is definitely one of the things that I find very concerning is like, how can we continue to increase the 5-minute frequency? I want that to be all blue. But yeah, which I know is an impossible ask, but and also have a comparison for the rail car service, especially for the beloved J train that comes every 15 minutes, and I've seen it go away a lot of times. So that would just be appreciated as well. Thank you.
To briefly answer the rail car question, the data we use is from APT data from bus routes that Muni provided. Currently, I'm not sure if the same technology is used for rail cars, so we don't have means to calculate that right now, but I can certainly get back to you after checking with SFMTA.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that would be really interesting too, to do a comparison for all of the major transit forms in the city, because I think that this is a conversation that we want to also be having at a more holistic level of like BART frequencies for people that can take BART in and out if they take them from, say, Balboa Park to the Embarcadero and or anything like that. I would love to keep seeing more of this, I guess, is my ask. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Member Ortega, Member or Vice Chair Siegel, and then Member Kim.
Thank you for the presentation. I think this is more, well, I mean, I guess it's feedback for the TA and MTA, but similar to Member Ortega, what really stood out to me about this report was the fact that fewer folks now live close to stops served by Muni service that comes every 5 or 10 minutes. That seems like a big problem, as well as the fact that transit speeds haven't recovered as much as private vehicle speeds. I know, so I mean, myself, one of the reasons why I take transit less now than I did before the pandemic is because it is, routes close to me have not returned to the frequency or the times of day that they used to serve me. A lot of routes end much earlier in the evening. So I'm like one of those people in the like 61% recovered ridership. I'm usually opting to bike places because it is so much more reliably fast to get to where I need to go. So when that's a feasible option for me, that's what I opt for. It seems to me like we're missing opportunities to shift people's mode to transit when we are so limited in the overnight service as well as frequent service. And I know that we're constrained, that MTA is constrained by operating funds right now. That's, you know, a huge issue, and I think we all want to see more money for transit service. I also feel like we're missing opportunities, especially given that we're seeing still less traffic on arterials compared to pre-pandemic, to really invest in dedicated rights of way for bus service as well as rail service, so that at least, even if we can't increase the number of operators and vehicles on the road at a given time, speed them up, you know, make it so that we can do more runs because the vehicles can run faster because they're not blocked by cars, because it's impossible to be blocked by a car because it has a dedicated place to go. So that would be my main takeaway and feedback from this report, is that I would love to just, see us invest in all the ways that we can in, I don't know, just like hardening transit infrastructure to speed up vehicles while we are still looking for money to increase the number of vehicles on the road at any given time.
Great, thank you, Vice Chair Siegel. Member Kim.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for presentation. There's some, you show us the transit coverage by service, weekday, AM, PM, right? But is there any data weekday versus a weekend? I mean, comparing to pre-pandemic, typical pattern changes, before pandemic, AM traffic is higher and then PM traffic lower. But right now, the PM traffic recovered really high, but AM, because, due to remote work. But I want to see probably, comparing to weekday and weekend, I can assume, weekend traffic is recovered more higher because people travel for, go to eat or entertainment. So if possible, I want to see the weekend data as well. And also, here's a mention SFCTA. This is data activity-based travel demand model. And then District 1, I received one of this data for the pre-pandemic. And then it's really interesting. It shows all the mode, bike, walk, or car, how the traffic move around. So if you have newest data after pandemic, it helps us to understand that. And the reason why I request is, for example, one of the project is Gary Global Rapid Transit, and then they talking about one of the project based on this study, but their data is old. They says 2013 data, but as you see, the travel pattern changing. So we have to see any in a future plan, we need to use updated data is really important. That's the way we can chase the demand. Demand pattern is changing, but somehow we MTA especially stick to the old data. So even though they do some project, maybe those project is not effective anymore because already the demand changes. So I would like to see the if you can provide the CHAMP data.
On the weekend coverage question, so this data has been collected longitudinally and it's been just with the peak and for weekdays so far. So we can certainly look into adding the weekend data, full day weekend data in future CMP cycles. The same, yes. And Joe, would you like to take the question on chat?
I'm sorry, the question on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you provide the SF CHAMP data as well?
Well, so one thing, yeah, sure. So one thing that I just want to point out is that everything that you're seeing here, all the data that's being reported is observed data. So the SF CHAMP model is a model. So we use it to represent what's happening on the streets today and then to what may happen in the future or what may happen if we make some change. But it's an estimate given the changes in commute patterns and so on. But what Chun Ho has been reporting on is the actual observed data. So everything that you're seeing in these charts here is information that has been collected from big data sources, traffic patterns. In this case, the transit service is based on information that SFMTA has published. And so in this case, there isn't a need for CHAMP data per se, because what you're seeing is what's actually happened on the streets. Does that make sense?
But my understanding, CHAMP data not only estimation is also collected data happen,
It is. We use the observed data to build the model of CHAMP. And one of the things that we do is make sure that it represents what's happening in reality at a given time, right? So it does represent observed data. But with the CMP monitoring is and we collect data, the information that's used to develop the CHAMP model with less frequency than the data collection that we're doing to report on how the transportation system is performing, which is what the CMP is about. So it's about, every 2 years, and we also do additional reporting, but at least every 2 years, what are the speeds on the streets? What are transit speeds? How much transit coverage is there? But this is, again, all observed data. This is what has actually been delivered by Muni. This is what has actually happened on our streets.
Sorry, I have a member, Kim. We are going to be running a little bit on time, so I do appreciate it. Member Bars, I see you getting ready. Do you still have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Ortiz. I just had a clarifying question. The action item on the agenda says we're approving the congestion management program. The enclosure is the report. So are we just approving the report? Or what? Yes. Yes, we're approving the report. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Great, thank you. I just had a couple quick questions, and thank you again for the presentation as well too. Particularly for my question, I'm going to ask particularly, is there any way to use this data and modeling, particularly to create a map to see what areas, particularly to Member Ortega and Member Vice Chair Siegel's points about frequency? I'd like to see particularly frequency in certain neighborhoods, right? To see geographically where folks are riding the bus more frequently, right? And kind of going from there. The other question that I had particularly was on, I think that's actually it so far. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think actually in the report itself, there are some maps showing the frequency coverage, like geographically.
Can you pull those up really quickly? That'd be possible.
I think I'll have to get back to you on that. It's,
You could probably do it,
Okay.
except it's on the website, somehow. Just go, if you give them a moment.
give me a moment.
And oh yeah, and I remembered my second point. The second point particularly was on particularly also the timeframes as well to see, do these maps specifically have the time frame of AM versus PM, right? On those different shades about what folks are returning to, different neighborhoods, particularly like in like a PM hour and things like that.
Yeah, so maybe I'll take this as Joe Castiglione, again, Deputy Director for Technology Data Analysis at the TA, while Chun-Ho pulls up the maps. Yes, there is information that we can present by time of day that represents AM versus PM. The information all comes from a feed of the services that SFMTA publishes. So, we have information going back, X number of years historically. So to the extent that there's interest in looking at how these, patterns and services have changed as the opportunity, already some of this is in the CMP itself, but if there's an interest in additional information, we can certainly generate that.
That would be great. Maybe like as a supplemental in future CAC meetings. I'd love to see that. Or even you can just send it offline as well too.
Cherokee's Wall, Chun-Ho's pulling that up. Would you like to take public comment?
Yeah, let's do it. Mr. Mason.
Thank you, Edward Mason. My analysis of this is, this society suffers from a culture of convenience. It's easier to get in your car and go somewhere as opposed to saying, well, maybe I'll take another 5 minutes or so and wait for the bus or go about your appointed duties. I'll relate to a story or one thing that I did about 28 years ago when I retired. I took classes at De Anza College, and I committed myself to taking transit. And I knew that it was how much time it would take to drive. Of course, I was living there, and I knew how much it was to drive and how much it was on transit. Well, the bottom line is, for about 8 months, it was 300 more hours I spent on transit than it was to drive. So as a consequence, my analysis is we suffer from a culture of convenience. Unless you're poor and can't afford an automobile, you're going to be on transit or you're going to be on some micromobility device. But we just suffer from that, and we're not recognizing the environmental impact that autos have, and, even with the new electric vehicles, you have to say, well, how are they getting charged? Because you only got about 25 or 30% of the electricity being generated from either solar power or, environmentally sound production. So, and then also you've got the heavy weight of the batteries in those vehicles that's causing more wear and tear and non-point source pollution from the automobile tires and all that's going there. So, nobody's looking at it from the big picture, and nobody's willing to do anything about it. And you can do all the modeling you want, unless there's a cultural shift and an understanding that we suffer from a culture of convenience. And then you get all the Amazon trucks running around, and I'm out of time now, so I'll just leave it and think about those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Do we have a remote public comment?
Checking for remote public comment. There is no comment for this item.
Yeah, that's rolling today. Okay, so let's. This is an action item. Oh, actually, we have the map. Perfect.
Yes, thank you for giving me some time to pull this up. So this would, I believe this is the population coverage for weekday AM peak, and the same colors as in the slide deck is used. The dark blue is for 5-minute frequency. And then the medium blue is 10-minute, and gray is for any morning service. For buses.
The bus is great.
Yeah, can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, it should be in the packet.
Okay, yeah, fine.
Check her webpage, is that? Maybe it's up.
It's on page 37 of the report.
Thank you.
I think, just a couple questions I have in mind this, well. This is 5-minute headways, 10-minute headways, particularly on the west side. This also, there are certain routes that only run certain limited hours, right, on that, and so they would be included in this, right?
Yes, this is for the AM peak, which for CMP purposes, it's 7 to 9 AM. So it would be whatever's running at those frequencies at those peak hours.
Great. Do we have a PM one?
This one's for the PM.
Okay. No. I think we'll have more questions that come up on this, but Vice Chair Siegel?
Yeah, thank you. I just had a really quick clarifying question. Are we sure that, so when I've seen the 95% coverage number in SFMTA reports previously, they've made it sound like it did include rail service. This is definitely not, but this does, like, the frequency numbers don't include rail service, and like, could we get that combined number if this is just bus service?
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that, and I'll reach out to SFMTA.
Thank you.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Seeing none, this is an action item. Can we take a motion on this?
Member Siegel, I move.
Thank you, Vice Chair
One
Siegel.
second, Jerry, 1 second.
Thank you, Member Levine.
On item 7, Member Daniels.
Daniels, aye.
Daniels, aye. Member Davidson is absent. Member Kim.
Kim, I.
Kim, aye. Member Levine.
Levine, aye.
Levine, aye. Member Milford Rosales.
Milford Rosales, aye.
Rosales, aye. Member Ortega.
Ortega, I.
Ortega, aye. Member Chair Ortiz.
Chair Ortiz, aye.
Chair Ortiz, aye. Vice Chair Siegel.
Siegel, aye.
Siegel, aye. The motion is approved.
Great, thank you for your presentation. So now we're gonna go into introduction of new business. This is an informational item. Do CAC members have any new business that they want to introduce? I see Member Levine.
Yeah, I just an inquiry of when will we be seeing the legislative program again, or the status of the legislative program?
That would be in January.
January, okay. At some point, I would be really interested in following up. For years, I've been involved in trying to see about the possibility of getting an oil severance or extraction fee instituted against the oil companies in California. It would result in approximately $4 billion worth of revenues annually to transportation in the state. California is the only state in the entire country that does not have one. Texas has one, Oklahoma has one, California does not. And anyway, at some point, I would like to at least explore the possibility of looking again at an oil severance or extraction fee for the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Levine. Do we have any other new business from members? If not, I have a few items that have come up, so I think. So a couple things, I think we had some very robust conversations today, and some questions came up in mind, particularly around. The first item, particularly around, I would like to see if we can get a presentation from maybe some modeling or a presentation from SFMTA. And our other transit agencies like BART, particularly around labor replacement analysis, particularly for in a growing age population, particularly for maintenance. And folks that are getting older in the workforce. I know that in the next 30 years, we're expected to have a 30% increase in those that are retiring. And so I'd like to know particularly for, roles that are unique to the SFMTA, what the plan is to replace those roles to make sure that our systems are continuing to be functioning. And also at the same time, as we also look at expanding, transit capital projects and, just the overall like kind of labor questions that are in mind. I think we need to have also kind of I think I had brought up the issue about bike safety and education. We had discussed that at length, so I think it'd be great to hear kind of a presentation from SFTA on the next item on that. I think one thing that also came up in mind for me would be just a presentation. Do we have any items particularly about the concept of a protected bike lane network that exists particularly within the city, any plans in mind on that? So I'd like to hear, just from the appropriate agencies on that, where things are at on that kind of item. And then I think for me, I'd like to hear an update at our next meeting, particularly around the Valencia bike lane update, specifically on this item, just be given that there's major small business closures that have been happening. We're talking about 30 to 50% revenue reduction for a lot of these folks on this transit corridor, and then also the growing safety concerns on bike about the bike lane as a whole. I know that SFMTA said that they're going to be moving this item back to March, but I'd like to actually get an update sooner than that, given that this is I think this is a precedent, like this is a high priority issue for particularly folks in my my district and my constituency. So thank you. Member Milford Rosales.
Sorry to clarify, you said Valencia Bike Street? All right, thanks.
Yeah, the Valencia bike or quick build project particularly. Do we have any other questions, comments from members? Seeing none, can we open this up to public comment?
Do we have remote public comment?
Yes, we have Roland, but hold on, he admitted, he just joined, okay. Actually, no, that's not public comment, sorry. He just joined, I'm not sure if he has public.
No, I think we've gone to our general public comment.
Okay. Roland, did you have public comment? Is that why you just joined, or are you just joining for information?
Well, Danielle, let's go to our in-person public comments first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I heard remote public comment. Sorry. Okay. My fault. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edward Mason. Reflecting on the culture of convenience, you meld that with the corporate commuter buses, and you wonder, well, why are people living here, working there? And for the culture of convenience, they provided a corporate commuter bus. Whereas they could take Muni down to Caltrain, and then, if they have a shuttle in the Cupertino or something from the Caltrain station, that's what it goes. What really baffles me is there's a bus that comes to 24th and Church, and on the destination sign, it says Marina Mission East Palo Alto. And there's one person or two people on that bus consistently running a 40-foot bus. Now, we did the CHAMP program to justify the commuter buses and saying, well, they're going to cut back on environmental concern and pollution and everything else, because the default was that all the people on those buses would drive their cars. Well, my opinion is a lot of young people don't have cars. They rent their transportation with Uber and Lyft, again, for the culture of convenience. So, you get this whole mishmash that's going on, and it's to the detriment of the environment. And we wind up with congestion on 101. And you look at and I'm on a bus on 101, and they've got their high-speed lane there that people pay money for, the Lexus lane in San Mateo County. And, it's moderately used, depending on what the pricing is for the lane usage. So everything boils down to culture of convenience, and how to counter that is beyond me. I can't figure out what would motivate people to turn around their attitude on their lifestyle that they're so addicted to. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Do you have remote public comment?
Not seeing any remote public comment for item 7.
Just to clarify, we are on item 9, general public comment. Yeah.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? for item 10?
I think we can move on to item 10.
Cool. Motion to adjourn?
Steve.
Great. I think all those in favor say aye. Cool.
That's the. I think it's like,